Hi there and welcome to Jacqueline Wilson Raised Us, podcast for anyone who stayed up way past their bedtime reading double act Under the Covers, who sprinted home after school to watch the latest episode of Tracy Beaker, and traded dog-eared copies of The Girls like they were gold on the school playground. Basically, if Jacqueline Wilson was your fairy godmother, this is the place to be. Let's dive into the nostalgia together. So today I am here with the lovely Louise Pentland. Louise is a content creator, author and self-described OG vlogger who's been making content online for 15 years. She is also the biggest Jacqueline Wilson fan and is joining us today to discuss all things parenting and parenthood. Hi Louise!
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm geeking out.
It's like the biggest geek session of my life, this podcast. This is the best thing ever.
This is the best thing ever.
What does Jackie mean to you? Where did you start with your Jackie journey?
I love that you're like Jackie.
Sorry, yes, it's Jacqueline, sorry.
Jackie? Yeah, Jackie.
We're pals.
Yeah. What does it mean to me? So, Jacqueline Wilson is by far my favourite author. I don't mean my favourite author as a child. I just mean, in general, my favourite author. And I'll tell you for why. So, when I was very little, she came to my school. And for most of my online audience know this, but for your online audience who probably don't, I didn't have the childhood that I should have had. Yeah. My mum passed away when I was 7. And then my dad, for many reasons, just sort of tapped out. And I was left in the care of someone who should never ever be allowed to be around children. So everything horrible that you're thinking, that, and school was my only happy, safe place. But at my school, I felt really sick because I was told by the people at home that I was stupid and not clever and would never really amount to much. My teachers didn't say that. My teachers were nice. They were just, teacherly. But this was the 90s, so it's not like it is now with like amazing pastoral care and safeguarding and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. It was like not that at all. Anyway, 9 years old, it's 1995, and there's this lady that's written a book and she's coming to our school. And I was like, right, okay. I was a very ambivalent child because of everything going on at home. Didn't really have the capacity to engage in much.
Yeah, you're not clocking into that. It's just
I'm just attending school,
surviving.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm that kid that's just sat cross-legged on the hall floor, like watching her talk. And the more she talked, I remember she had all these rings on, and I'm so glad she still wears the rings.
She wears everything.
Yeah, I loved it, and I just spent the whole first half looking at her rings and thinking, it's so strange because she is an author. That's a really good job. She's obviously really clever, but also she doesn't look stuffy or boring like I thought someone like that would look. Yeah. And she was talking about her imagination and these ideas she had for this book. And I got drawn in and I was so engaged, which was so unlike me. Didn't ask a question, probably didn't even look her in the eye, but she had such an impact on me. And I think we all got given her book or I went home with the book. So somehow...
Do you remember which one it was?
I think it was The Suitcase Kit. So I read a whole bunch at this time. It led me to read loads. So I read around that time The Bed and Breakfast Star, The Suitcase Kid, the one with the twins, Ruby and Garnet, Double Act. And Tracy Beaker, I think, was already out, but I hadn't read it at that point. But The Suitcase Kid really touched me because she was from what was then called a broken family. We'd now call it a blended family. Mm-hmm. And I was living in a very broken, I say family at a push. Yeah. And I had never read a book about a child that wasn't having a perfect life, that didn't have mum, dad and dog. And it just, I don't know, it just spoke to me so much. And then I wanted to read all of her books and I had this outlet and I was like, maybe I could do something like this. And 30 years later, I am soon to be a children's author. I don't know when this podcast is going out, but end of August, my children's book comes out and I get to say my Jacqueline Wilson. I want to be like, Jacqueline.
You can do that.
Well, I don't know if she'll want me to reach out to her.
I feel like she's quite she's friendly.
I sort of want to grasp her and be like,
please don't do that because she's...
No, but when you see a really gorgeous little cat and you just want to pick it up and squeeze it so tight.
Babies fit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Your children's book is coming out very soon.
Yeah.
How can you tell us about it?
So I feel the same way about the children's book as I do about Jacqueline Wilson. So a few years ago, I actually wrote women's fiction about a woman called Robin Wilde, and it turned into a trilogy. It was only ever meant to be one book, because I was a bit scorned by somebody who had not treated me right. So I was like, don't get mad, write a best-selling book.
Best revenge.
It was revenge that escalated in a very good way for me.
That is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if it went well for him, but went well for me. And in that book, the main character, this single mum called Robin Wilde, had a daughter called Lila, and I thought it'd be really nice to write a children's book with Lila being our hero. So 10-year-old Lila, she comes also from a broken or blended, as I prefer, family, and she has started at a new school. It's a very posh private school, and she's not quite sure if she fits in there. Things are a bit difficult at home because mum and dad are separated, and there's a lot of angst there, and all the issues that you have when you're 10 years old. And I have 2 daughters, so I have seen this, and I acutely remember being 10. But what's special about Lila is she has Lila Land. So the book is called Adventures in Lila Land. And Lila has this magical, mystical, fantastical land where she can go anytime she wants and have these adventures until suddenly it all goes horribly wrong. And she has to work out how to save Lila Land and how to sort her real life out as well.
Oh my gosh.
And there's an invention competition that I probably should have mentioned earlier as part of the plot. And Lila enters a Young Inventors competition.
Oh.
Yes. I've really messed that up horribly.
No, you have not.
But I promise you the book is slightly less chaotic than my summary of it, but not much less.
It does sound like a Jacqueline Wilson novel in that kind of the way children have, especially many in the Jacqueline Wilson books, have that escapism and they picture this amazing world that they're going to go into, but obviously Lila actually goes into it. Yes. Is that correct? Yeah?
So she actually can go into it.
Okay.
But so we as the adult do know that it is her imagination.
Right.
But she, to begin with, doesn't. To her, it is very, very real. Oh. So there was a little bit in the book. I'm answering a question you've not answered now. You've not answered.
No, we... I love a tangent.
Yeah, so I'm on it. I'm
on
firmly on my tangent. So when you said it sounds like a Jacqueline Wilson book, there was one little bit that I put in the in my book that I remember. So there's a bit in the Bed and Breakfast Star where the girl goes to the corner shop and buys loads of sweets, and there's a list of the sweets in the book, like licorice, Sherbet Fountain, yada yada. And I remember being so taken with that as a 10-year-old. I don't know why it pleased me so much. I think it was because the text looked different on the page. Like we had normal text and then suddenly a list. Yeah. And I really liked that. And so in my book, Lila and her friend Penelope go to the shop and they get some sweets, and there's a list of the sweets they get. And as I wrote it, I was really thinking nice little nod just for me, just for inner Louise.
Little Easter egg almost.
Yeah.
I love that about Jacqueline's books as well. It's such a visceral thing as well to imagine the licorice, everything. Also, licorice for a 10-year-old is a brave choice.
But in a Sherbet Fountain, are you too young to remember Sherbet Fountains? Okay. Orange tube. Some of the audience will remember. Whatever you're seeing this on, comment if you remember a Sherbet Fountain. Or yellow tube. Yellow tube.
Yeah.
And it's paper and it's filled with white sherbet.
Right.
And then there's a licorice stick that goes through.
Yeah.
And you lick the licorice stick and then dab it in. And it's great for about 3 dips and licks. And then the cardboard that's holding the sherbet goes a bit soggy and mangy, and it all gets a little bit sticky and messy. But absolutely stunning. Oh. Yeah. Gourmet.
You've obviously mentioned a lot of the books. Which ones was there one that was really special?
The Suitcase Kit.
Yeah, the Suitcase Kit.
I loved it because she was from a divorced family, and although I wasn't at that time from a divorced family, in the end my dad did get divorced. I've had a bit of everything. I've had a meze board of family issues. But that time I was from a bereaved family, but just relating to that child wanting the other parent and not being able to access them. really spoke to me. So I would just love that. I actually bought it again and read it as an adult a few years ago, just to see if it was just as good as I remember. And it was. Yeah, and her little Sylvanian that she takes with her under the mulberry tree.
I love Sylvanians.
I do as well.
Do your daughters have Sylvanians?
Yes, they do. Yeah. I basically relived my own childhood. I was like, do you want more Sylvanians?
Do you want more Sylvanians?
I think they do. Do you remember the canal boat, the Sylvanian canal?
Canal
I didn't.
Oh, no, I just had like the house, just like the little house.
Yeah, my friend Ruth Ramsdale had the canal boat with all the creatures. She was living life. Oh my God, in the fast lane.
I don't know where we go from there because I could talk about Sylvanian families all day. I do think what is great about Jacqueline's books is that you never really got a traditional family in any of them.
No, you didn't.
I can't think of any.
Were the twins' parents together?
I don't. Were they? They were. We're getting a nod from the panel.
Although Ruby and Garnet did sort of hate each other.
Yeah.
Which wasn't ideal.
But there is no family, even if they've got a traditional family, that is gonna be perfect anyway.
I have never met anybody that's like, my family's just dreamy. All of them. Even if your direct family is great, you've always got an auntie or an uncle who are a bit off the wall.
Yeah.
So yeah, nobody's perfect. I recently heard, I don't know if you've heard this phrase, family, you have your family of creation and your family of origin.
Ooh.
So my family of origin is pretty messy, but my family of creation is really, really lovely. So my family of creation would be Liam, Darcy and Pearl. Yeah. And I've worked really hard not to hand down the kind of stress and the drama from my family of origin into my family of creation.
Broken the cycle.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I think that's also like with like Dolphin and Star and Marigold in The Illustrated Mum. Marigold doesn't continue that cycle, but it's so present in her, everything that she went through in her, what was it, you called it, the origin family?
Yeah, her family of origin or origin family.
Well, even the fact that she didn't really have one and that she was in these care homes with the nuns, and like you can obviously see the effect that trauma has had on her and the way she brings it into, but she just tried not to bring it to her children, but the impact it has still resonates within that family to create a really chaotic home for them.
I think it's so nice for children to see these different types of families and to be able to be like, yeah, that's my life, or my best friend is like that, or my cousin is living like that, so that they have a little bit more compassion and empathy for everyone around them and grow into hopefully more compassionate adults. Think of the impact Jacqueline's had on our society.
Honestly, like I can't imagine like not having grown up with these books. Like,
when
what a boring place we would have been in.
Rubbish. When I arrived here, I went to the train station to go and get a couple of her books for her to sign for my youngest daughter, and the lady in the bookshop said, oh, that's a lot of Jacqueline Wilson books. And I was like, yeah, I'm going on a podcast with her. And she was like, oh my God, mother. I was like, yeah, I know.
Oh my God, she actually is though, isn't she?
Yeah. She's a national treasure.
She's like dame.
Why isn't she a dame?
No, I think she is.
Oh, she is. She is.
But she's so chill and humble about it that like,
yes,
we haven't even mentioned that in like all the prep we've done for that. There's been no mention of her being a dame because she's that cool and that chill.
She should have a statue.
She did have a statue in Brighton.
Stop it.
For the promo for Picture Imperfect, they got a statue of her and took it around Brighton. Now? I don't actually know.
I hope it's like in her garden.
Can you imagine it? Just go and have a little morning coffee.
Yeah, I would like that.
Would you like a statue of yourself?
Are you offering? Is Cosmo offering one?
Cosmo's budget does not
extend
to
the budget stretch?
Does not extend
to a cast iron statue.
How have Jacqueline Wilson books influenced your life now, and like, have they ever sort of impacted the way you parent your children?
I think Jacqueline Wilson books have brought me so much comfort. They're such a comfort read. Even as an adult, I always think that just because you're an adult doesn't mean you can't read children's books again. You can revisit them. Yeah. I think that they bring nostalgia and comfort and warmth. And as a child, like we said earlier, I think that they instill in children a certain level of empathy and understanding for other people. Yeah. So hopefully I've carried that into my adult life. But now I get to read them with my children. And so I've just started reading Project Fairy with Pearl because she's really into fairies.
Fairies are the best.
I know, right? Our fairies actually write to us at our house.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's
and
awesome.
We also caught a picture of them on our Ring doorbell.
Wow.
Yeah, it happened the same day that my husband got ChatGPT on his phone.
How convenient.
Yeah, I know. So mum hack for anyone listening. Yeah. Ring doorbell, the other app.
Wow.
Happy children. So we're reading Project Fairy, and Pearl would always rather I read the book than her. But what I do now is I read like a few pages and I say, oh, my throat's getting really sore. Can you read the next page? And she doesn't realise that she's reading, and it's really nice. And I'm like, oh, this is lovely. So it's been really lovely.
Obviously, Picture Imperfect is all about the idea of like perfection and everything.
Yes.
When you were a child, what did you think your adult life was going to look like?
Well, I thought that I was not going to be very much at all, because that's sort of the messaging that I was given. My dad is a perfectionist, and my dad really wanted me to be the best at everything. So if I got like an A- at school, he'd be like, almost an A, or next time you have to try and get an A. Or,
it is an A.
Well, it's an A-, not quite good enough. So I didn't really think I would do much at all. I just thought I'll just grow up and get a job, and that'll be. I didn't really. Yeah. It's quite, when you're trodden down, it's quite hard to have aspirations for things, because you have to have at least 1% belief that you actually could do something. So I didn't really have much hope for anything. And it wasn't until I became a teenager and I went to university that I started thinking like, well, hang on a minute, I've got here. I can't be that stupid. And then I started to believe in myself a bit more. But I think it's so dangerous to want to be perfect, because you will never be. You might be the best at one thing for an amount of time until someone else becomes the best. But then what? Are you a failure because you are second? Of course you're not. But yeah, dangerous.
And how does your adult life now compare to what you thought it was going to be?
It far exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
First of all, starting a blog almost 16 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Turned out to have been a good move, because
very good move.
From the blog came the YouTube channel, came books, and this like very exciting, varied, creative, dignified, happy life. And then meeting Liam and having 2 gorgeous girls and all the things that have come with my life, I'm so grateful for. And of course there are the tough bits and the bad days and all the usual stuff that people have to deal with. But when you have grown up with sort of 1 out of 10 joy, to even have 6 out of 10 joy is a huge improvement. So life got really good, and touch wood. This is that will do.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds a little bit woody. It stays that way. But like, if this is peaking, I'm on a podcast with Jacqueline Wilson.
I know. I think that feels like a good time to bring in the author herself, the dame herself.
I think so. Hello. Hi. Welcome to your podcast.
Lovely to see you.
Hello, darling. Hi. Welcome to episode 2 of your podcast.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. Delighted that Louise.
So you two have met before, correct?
Yes, we met on a cruise ship.
Of all places.
That sounds grand. But we were working.
It was
working very hard.
Your book, was it called The World's Greatest Sleepover, or The World's Best Sleepover?
It was, now you asked me,
no.
the best sleepover in the world.
That was
what
it.
it was.
And Jacqueline hosted a sleepover on board, which was a lovely event for children to come with beanbags and listen to her talk about the book. And then the ship took off without Jacqueline. But I actually did go on that cruise.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's
very nice.
Valiant.
Yeah.
But you had children with you, so
yes,
there
I
we
did.
go. Yes.
Yeah. So that was nice. And also, you definitely won't remember this, it's so long ago, but we did meet in 1995. You came to my school, and I was a very shy child, so I just sat cross-legged on the hall floor and probably didn't even make eye contact with you, but it was lovely.
Well, there you go. Third time is going to be even better, I think.
I am so jealous of that sleepover. Can you do an adults one? Because Sleepovers is one of my favourite books, so I think you should do an adult one. And we all get to bring and read the book.
Yeah, but nowadays, when there's a bit of sex in my adult book,
no,
God knows what would happen in an adult sleepover.
Sounds like a great event.
I mean, we're not planning like an orgy at sea. I just mean, because the Sleepovers is such a special book.
And Orgy at Sea sounds like a brilliant book in itself.
I mean, it does.
Orgy at Sea.
You're right, though.
We could collab by Louise Pentland and Jacqueline Wilson.
It's embarrassing enough in my village if people read the books and stare at me. Goodness, I didn't expect that, Jackie. And in fact, I have a dear friend, a little bit older than me, and she's usually very supportive, but she was quite dismissive of Think Again. And though she had begged me to give her a copy, and she likes my children's books, and she has asked me what I was writing, and I said I'm writing this brand new book. Picture perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Oh, and do you think it will do well?" So I said, "Well, I'm always worried."
What sort of a question is that to you?
And I said, "Actually, think Again did do well, and it got into the Times bestseller list." And
Thanks
did
very
it?
much.
She said, and I said yes, and I said, "You're trying to be modest. Goodness knows why." And she said, "I do. It's the sex."
Sex sells, that's what they say.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it would have gotten the bestseller list without the sex, but
But it's
Doesn't
hardly
harm.
50 Shades of Grey, for goodness sake.
do you not take any inspiration from 50 Shades then?
No,
No.
not my scene.
Moving swiftly on, Louise is obviously a big fan. We also have some other fans as well who have sent in some video messages for you that I'm going to play.
Hey, my name is VMAC. I'm a broadcaster on BBC Radio 1 Extra, and one of my favourite Jacqueline Wilson books has to be Dustbin Baby. I mean, reading a book about a young girl called April who was abandoned at birth and growing up in foster care was quite frankly trailblazing for me as a young kid. I don't think I really realised the impact Jacqueline Wilson's books would have on me as an adult, because it was about real people, real lives and real life situations, and that is why Jacqueline Wilson will always be mother.
Oh, that's so lovely. And I'm so glad Dustbin Baby made an impact, because it's a difficult book to tackle, because my girl doesn't know who she is, because she was found as a baby in a dustbin, of all things, which does happen. Not so much now, but certainly when I was growing up, there were often sort of shock horror stories in, who abandoned this child. And I was fascinated by the whole thing, and yet trying to make it child appropriate, or older child appropriate. And so I'm so glad that she really liked it.
Do you find when you meet adult or fans that have grown into adults of yours that, so I could see sort of like roughly what kind of age she was, and she said Dustbin Baby. Can you kind of guess people's age based on which books were their favourite? Like mine is like the Suitcase Kid and the Bed and Breakfast Star, and hers like, do you like, oh yes, you're from that era?
Now, actually, I hadn't realised, but that is what I do, because nowadays, I think the older you get, anybody under 40 looks like a teenager to you. But it's very interesting, and particularly, I mean, I didn't know very much about book charts or anything. I knew my books had suddenly started doing well, but I hadn't realised they had such a wide readership. And no, it's absolutely lovely. That's what everybody needs in their older age, to suddenly feel current again in some way.
All these women that just love what you put out into the world and love you for it, and are so grateful for what you like injected into their childhoods. Like, how nice is that to kind of look back on? What a legacy.
It's fantastic. And I think sometimes if lovely things are happening to you and it's all in a rush and you're working hard, you don't cherish the moment. And I think if there's ever any message I would give to anyone, make the most of it. Sit down and think, this is happening, rather than looking back and think, now, when was that? And what was that? So,
But with all of your books, can you remember all of them?
no.
Can you remember which? Sorry, I'm taking over the
No,
podcast. So
please,
sorry.
no,
It's just
honestly.
I'm
No,
geeking out.
this is the point.
Can you remember which books it was, whether it was one or sort of a cluster, when things really took off for you?
It had to be The Story of Tracy Beaker, which wasn't immediate. It was when the television series, which was a good 4 or 5 years after. The book that I wrote after The Story of Tracy Beaker and before the television thing, that one, The Suitcase Kid,
My favourite one.
was really popular in a way. And I think partly because teachers noticing that suddenly there were more children in the class whose mum and dads were splitting up or had split up. And there's a lot of things that you could do with it. I mean, one class, she sent photos of actual little suitcases with sort of tiny messages inside about how Andy and Radish the rabbit felt. And
Little Radish, the little Sylvanian.
And it was a very useful book to speak about when I went to schools, because I took the real little, well, it's not real, it's a toy, but it was actually my daughter's toy when she was little. So I appropriated Radish the rabbit. And I used to get the kids interested, I used to sort of bring it out and make it do little tricks. And I had a piece of elastic and I stuck it on the top of a pencil and made Radish do bungee jumping. And it sort of amused them and got them in the mood for, listening to the story and everything. But what I found really, really touching is that several children said, can I have a rabbit like that? And I said, well, you can buy them in toy shops, or in those days it was Toys R Us, etc. And they said, no, I don't want a toy, I want a magic one like that one. And they hadn't realised, just a tiny bit of imagination can make a toy into anything you like. So I know, it was very touching.
How do you feel about being called Mother?
Being called Mother?
Yeah. How do I explain Mother?
No, it's like
so she called you Mother at
they
the end.
changed the meaning of it.
That is why Jacqueline Wilson will always be Mother.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Much better than grandmother.
It's like a mark of respect. It's like saying you are like the nation's mother, like you are queen, we look up to you.
Well, what could be better?
It's like a Gen Z way of almost like the Gen Z version of like a dame almost.
It's a compliment.
It's a massive compliment.
I would say it's what Gen X would say national treasure.
Yeah.
They would say mother. Yeah.
Well, I feel I am not worthy.
Oh,
but how lovely
you are. And we've got a few more videos as well.
Jackie, one of my most precious memories is snuggling up with my daughter when she was young, reading and adoring Hetty Feather together, then off for a special trip to the Foundling Museum. What I love about your novels, whether for early readers, youngsters, teens, or old women like me, is that they focus on real relationships, the joy, the mess, the heartbreak, love. Across the age groups, people love to connect over what Jacqueline Wilson novels mean to them. We often chat about your characters as if they're our friends, because they are real people to us. Most of all, thank you, Jackie, for writing with such compassion and empathy. I really do believe this inspires and develops the same in your readers. Promise us you'll never stop writing.
What a lovely message. I've probably got tears in my eyes.
You actually did need the hanky.
Yes. Oh, how lovely. And how fantastic it is when mums do read with their children, which is your message, Louise. I mean, just what a wonderful woman.
And will you promise to never stop writing?
I'm doing my best.
That's honest. Yeah.
No, not all. Family and friends are saying, oh, for goodness sake, Jackie, just relax. You've written enough. Just enjoy yourself.
You do deserve to relax.
No, but I don't want to. I have to keep writing. So that's it. As long as I can, the brain is still ticking over, I will be writing.
Excellent. We were saying actually earlier that you were saying that the compassion and the empathy is what's really important to you, that you've learnt from it. And I guess also it's quite a nice way that, because we're talking about understanding different families, blended families, but also that even if you're not from blended family, actually it gives children the opportunity to learn about their classmates and what they might be going through as well, which is so important in your novels.
I do think that's very true, in that I grew up in an era of kind of Enid Blyton, where children's mothers and fathers, it was all quite formal, but they never had rows. There's certainly, in those days, if people were divorced, you whispered it. It was considered shameful. My own parents couldn't stand each other, but they didn't divorce. They should have done, I think. And And it wasn't my experience that everything was the way it was in books. And certainly we didn't live in a posh house and have a big garden and all the rest of it. And I always thought, because I was desperate to be a writer, but I thought I would like to write children's books the way it actually is for a lot of people. And thank goodness I got lucky.
Thank goodness you did.
And we have 2 more.
I've been a huge fan of Jacqueline Wilson since I was a young girl. I remember reading her books in under a day. My favourite being The Illustrated Mum, Lola Rose, and especially Tracy Beaker. Now, I'm so excited because her book, Think Again, I'm in the middle of it, is freaking amazing. It's so nostalgic. Literally, if you grew up in my era, I'm 32 now, you will know about Jacqueline Wilson. She is an icon.
Oh, goodness me, this is being such a joyous podcast. And how lovely. And she's naming all my favourites.
Are they your favourites?
Well, my favourites change from time to time, but these are very, very special to me, so that it's hard picking absolute favourites, but I think The Illustrated Mum was the one. It's quite a serious book, a slightly upsetting book, but I was really, really involved in that story. And there was a very, very good film made of it, starring Michelle Collins as Marigold, the Illustrated Mum. And I saw her being interviewed one time on the telly, and she was asked her proudest acting moment, and she said, "Oh, it was in a children's film when I played Marigold." Yes, I was very touched. Thank you very much, Michelle.
How involved are you in any adaptations of your work?
Probably not quite as much as I would like to be. I'm always very respectful to the people that write the scripts, because it's a different medium altogether. And therefore, I can have 2 pages about what's going on in somebody's head. And if they want to feature this bit, you could just see one flicker of emotion on the actor's face, and that's that. And I've been lucky enough to have brilliant writers. And then, I mean, directors, the whole... I haven't had a single adaptation that I've thought, oh no, a bit cringy here, or they haven't quite got it. No, I've always been incredibly lucky. And I always think that wonderful if it is that my books become well known, but it makes them better known if there is a screen adaptation or a stage. I had a wonderful Hetty Feather on stage where I'd go rather a lot to see it, because it was such a novelty. You rarely come across a child reading your book. And how do I know who's watching on television? But in the theatre, you can see what they laugh at, the kids didn't cry. It was the adults who cried. No, that lives absolutely in shining colours in my imagination.
We have one more video for you.
When I was a young teen, Jacqueline Wilson books were more than just stories for me. They were almost like a little lifeline, like a hug for my soul. As a child that grew up in a dysfunctional household where there was a lot of substance misuse, neglect and violence, which then led to me being in foster care, books were a great form of escapism for me. But I didn't see characters that were like me in those books until I came across hers. Characters like Tracy Beaker, Andy from The Suitcase Kit, and Dolphin from Illustrated Mum. They were dealing with big, messy situations. They weren't perfect or trying to be. They were misunderstood, angry, but always hopeful. Jacqueline Wilson didn't sugarcoat life, but in her books she's given us characters that felt real. Ones that show us that even if there's lots of chaos and strange things going on that we feel ashamed of, there's still space for friendships, for dreams, and for healing. As someone who needed escapism myself, who avoided thinking about and kind of absorbing everything that was going on around me, but also needed truth and companionship, those stories, no exaggeration, helped me to survive. And honestly, they helped me to start healing too, before I even knew what needing to be healed was.
Oh, what a fantastic testament. And isn't she a living example of somebody serene and secure and being her own self and everything? It's just fantastic.
Okay? I know, it's just so articulate.
Yeah,
how she...
totally.
So lovely.
And I think I was writing for anybody who'd had a pretty rubbish childhood, and yet also for a child who's had really loving parents and a lovely childhood, showing why some people can get a bit angry or a bit withdrawn, and sometimes even showing teachers, the reason a child might be sitting stubbornly and not saying anything or having an outburst. I mean, sometimes they can just be being blooming naughty, but it's hard if you feel you're different in some way, or you're worried about people finding out your home circumstances. So that I wanted to write because I wanted to write, and I wanted to write books that people like reading, but this extra, being a sort of comfort to people is just absolutely wonderful.
I feel like that really hit home with you.
It did, because I didn't have the childhood that I should have had. My mum died when I was very little, and then my dad, the best way to describe it is just tapped out. He just sort of wasn't there, and the person that came in to take care of me did all the things you should never do to a child. It was terrible, and I didn't tell people at school because I was groomed not to talk about it. But reading about characters who didn't come from perfect families, and I thought at the time everyone in my class had a mum and a dad and a sister and a pet that all loved them, and it was all perfect, because you don't know that there's other people struggling as well. And so to read about these characters that also had a difficult time, but also, like this lady said, found space for joy and friendships and love, was so lovely, because life is conflicting. I would enjoy school time, and I had a friend called Charlotte, and I really liked playing with Charlotte, but then I would hate home time, and that's really hard to process. Like, well, am I happy or not happy? Is my life bad or good? I don't know. But reading these books that had everything, they had difficult childhoods but happy moments, and you could flip-flop between your emotions, was a really good mirror of how I felt, and probably quite good for my emotional well-being. So I'm very grateful.
Now I have a lump in my throat. but you are living proof that there's some ancient prejudice that if you've had a terrible childhood yourself, or been in and out of care, that somehow this will carry on for the next generation. But many of the people I've met have become even more determined to be a truly good parent, a caring parent, a parent that's always there. And of course, we all have our moments, and I've had a yell or two at my daughter when she was little. But for the most part, when people often ask me, well, what are you proudest of? And I am very proud of having a really long career, and there have been wonderful moments. But I think deep down, I'm proudest of bringing up a child that felt love and could achieve exactly what she wanted to, which I think encouragement and love and time with your children is the best thing ever. And with Picture Imperfect, the new adult book, which is a continuation of Marigold, Star and Dolphin's story, originally in The Illustrated Mum, I want to show how sometimes the impact of having a very odd childhood has, an effect on your adult life, but how you can overcome it.
You can.
Yeah.
You can break the cycle.
Yes,
and
exactly.
You can do better. And that's the real justice, I think. That's winning, when you know that you've done better and the children that have gone after you have not had your experience.
Yes, that's absolutely it.
Oh, this is really
it's just like therapy in itself.
Well, no, because my mum broke a cycle, and I'm like the result of her breaking a cycle. So to me, it's a real, it just feels like all the different stages of it.
Your future Darcy and Pearl.
Yeah, literally. Speaking of Darcy and Pearl, I was saying Louise's daughter's names feel like they're almost out of one of your books. What is the process of coming up with your names for all the amazing stories that you tell?
with the illustrated mum, Marigold has bright orangey red hair, and so I thought Marigold would be a good name for her. And then she's so into tattoos, which when I wrote the book was not as usual for women to be heavily tattooed, which nowadays many young women, good God, the number of
Maybe from your book.
Do you have any?
I don't have any tattoos because I'm a bit too scared, so I don't know what I would have. But
but the number of girls that have Taylor Swift all over their legs now is quite surprising.
maybe they'll get your face.
Well, I hope not. I have seen a Tracy Beaker tattoo though,
That's
and
cool.
it was very carefully done in exactly Nick Sharratt's style and beautifully shaded too. So I was quite impressed with that. I don't think I will have a Tracy tattoo myself, but you never know. But Star and Dolphin are two of the most popular flash tattoos where it's not personally designed for you, and so I thought appropriate that Marigold would call these girls these slightly outlandish names. Star, fine, in fact quite beautiful. Dolphin, I mean, as Dolphin is teased at school. She's teased for many reasons, but she's called Bottlenose too, and you do feel, poor girl. Yeah. I did get very worried one time when somebody, it was a friend, who'd read lots of my books and said, I know the one you based on yourself. And I said, oh, which one then? Because I hadn't actually based any on myself. He said Dolphin. And Dolphin is grubby. It actually says she wears the same dress again and again and again, and she's quite fierce with her imaginings, and she's a tough little cookie because she's had to be. And I thought, oh, do I really come across as this?
I think she probably meant that in the best way possible.
Hopefully.
Wow. Or she shouldn't be a friend anymore.
Yeah. What does the naming process for every character? Do you get the names before you start writing, or is it that you're like, oh, I've got this character, but I don't know who they are, like what their name is? Where does that come?
Finding out their name is the most important thing, because they become real for me. I mean, I will have an idea floating in my head about a girl or two girls or whatever, and then I have to find the right name. And as I've written about 120 books, it's hard to find a different name.
Before you came on, we were talking about blended families, or how they were known back in the 90s as broken families. Mm-hmm. That's something that's always been really part of your work. And we were saying we couldn't actually think of many books that had a traditional family in it.
It's true.
Why is that? What was so important? Why did you want to show that in your novels?
I think partly because I was always interested in other children where mums and dads weren't getting on, or mums and dad had parted, or indeed you might just have a single mum or whatever. And certainly as life has gone on, sadly, this is more and more the case. Mm-hmm. Certainly in The Illustrated Mum, I wanted to show that this little unit of the mum and the two daughters who didn't actually know their separate fathers for a long time until into the book as part of the plot. And I was astonished when one time one of the Sunday papers, where they do their lovely book supplement for Christmas, they, instead of asking people the book that they really loved the most, they were asked, the book that they hated the most. And I was thinking, that's a bit different.
Don't want to be on that list, do you?
But the thing is, I was, to my absolute astonishment.
You tell me who.
Wow.
Anne Widdecombe said that The Illustrated Mum was the worst book she'd ever read. And
you read it.
And I thought, goodness, why? What is so dreadful about it? And then she had put at the end of this rather fierce little paragraph, it was mostly because the children in the book had two different fathers. I was astonished by this because...
As do my children.
The children can't help which father they've got, and that there are many, many, many reasons why you can have different fathers, or actually different mothers as a stepmother or whatever. So my next book, the Diamond Girls, there was a really lovely mum, very, very kind and caring. She had 4 daughters and they had 4 different fathers. So I thought, up yours, Anne.
Yeah. And she's your next guest this
Good
afternoon.
Please, that man would come to the podcast.
Here she is. What a small
Jacqueline.
world you would have to live in. Anybody, this is not directed at Anne, but what a small world a person would have to live in to be offended by something like that.
Well, I think this is the way I thought. I mean, luckily it didn't really upset me in any way. I just thought it a bit funny. But I did feel cross that you can condemn a family and if it's not an absolutely perfect family. And I mean, who makes a perfect family? I mean, I've met many blended families or one parent bringing up kids on their own that you would think absolutely 10 out of 10 for you. So
and families that have stayed together and had children all from the same mother and father and been utterly miserable because of it.
I mean, this is it. That was me.
Yeah.
In many of the family situations we see within the novels, there's a lot of difficult things that happen for the parents that the children have to witness. How do you decide how to write about it without how you wouldn't write it for adults, basically?
I think you have to edit things out, in that sometimes there are things that really, really would be too upsetting or too unsuitable for children to read, even though in real life the children might hear what's going on or see what's going on. So that if I have to be very, very careful, and because I nearly always write in the first person, I might have going under my duvet now, Mum and Dad are shouting horrid things and I don't want to hear. So that is a sort of just one remove from actually hearing. And in Lola Rose, there is a dad who can sometimes be violent. And I tried to make it clear that this is it. But I didn't want a truly horrific, violent scene because, you know, an imaginative child, that would stay in their head and be truly upsetting for them. But swapping around from nowadays from children's books to adult books and back again, I actually find it quite easy because if you're talking to a child, you can be truthful with a child and direct, but you don't say things in the same sort of way as you would to an adult. And so you do adapt. And so if I'm writing as a child, I am writing from their feelings and their experiences. And then if I'm writing, it's actually harder writing from somebody in their 30s or 40s.
Within some of your novels, you also have children that parent their own parents, especially in The Illustrated Mum, and even now in Picture Imperfect. How important is that to show for you that that's a reality for many children?
I think it is important, and I think children accept it and are interested no matter what their domestic circumstances. But for my children's books, I think some adults find it quite upsetting or irritating if parents are seen as not necessarily perfect, because when you're very little, you think everything your parents say and do is for your own good. And if something bad has happened, you often think, well, it's my fault because they're saying it's my fault. When in actual fact, with hindsight, no, it wasn't. And so I think parents like to feel that they never make mistakes. They never get furious. They never do this or that. But I'm not writing for them. I'm writing for the children. And I do try to have some lovely mums, some lovely dads. One time, quite a long time ago, in an audience, this really sweet man who'd taken his 2 daughters to hear me talk. And in the question times, he put up his hand and said, "This isn't a criticism, I promise, but in one of your books, could you have a really nice dad, please?
Aww.
And I thought, yes. So I did. I actually had a nice stepdad in a book called The Longest Whale Song. And I always thought about that dad. And I thought,
I hope he's
do
read
hope
that.
you were pleased with that.
You, and also in terms of like the darker subject areas, you also go into grief quite a bit, either for children losing their parents or their friends. How do you do, like, that is a big subject area to cover.
It's again, I think I started off writing about a girl it's a book for younger children whose elderly cat had died, because mostly that's a child's first experience with death. And I thought, I'll creep in. But it also, because children at that stage studied the Egyptians, and the whole mummy thing crops up, I thought you could have it. She's very sad, but she also attempts to mummify her cat, which is appalling. But it's kind of darkly funny, and it did have a good response, although I apologise tremendously to all cat lovers, and I include me in that, and I stroke my very elderly cat very lovingly indeed. But then when you come into the big time and the real experience of death, I mean, in Vicky Angel, Vicky is Jade, who's narrating the story, her best friend, and so lively and funny and occasionally irritating. And then there's an appalling accident, and Jade, in a way, blames herself, because I think often if somebody very close to you has died, and your distorted perception of this might make you feel it was all down to me. Vicky comes back to Jade and is there. You can read it either way. You can either feel that she really did, she's floating in the ether, she knows that things aren't finished between them, so she's there. She's always been the dominant one in the friendship, so she might actually be there as a ghost who flits backwards and forwards from time to time. Or she could be Jade making her up in her head. I mean, lots of people who have suffered losing somebody they really love say that they actually hear their voices and they talk to them. So it's a very real experience. I had many, many letters say, is Vicky real? Is she a ghost? Is she made up? And I always very irritatingly have written back saying, you have to make up your own mind. Because in a way, I didn't know either, because I was so much inside Jade, but wanted that I became her, and I didn't really know. But, different people reacted to it all in different ways. And then Ellie, in the girls' books, her mum has died when Ellie is quite young, although she still remembers her vividly. And she still thinks of her fondly and with sadness. But I want to show that by this time, when a lot of time has gone by, she'll always feel sad and longing for that mother. But also, there's all sorts of other things in her life. But the trouble is that when something like this hits you at whatever age, it seems like your grief is going on forever and ever and ever, which it does in a way, but you just get older and more able to cope with it, and then it becomes part of you. And then a sort of an acceptable sadness, a nostalgic sadness, rather than lying down crying and crying. So
that's how I feel about my mum, just like a mum-shaped hole in my life, but not sort of that white hot rage grief, but just sort of numb acceptance.
I think as a child, particularly a really young child, to lose your mum is a really difficult thing to get over, because we are programmed, this is the closest bond there can be, and it's awful, but you're living proof. You can manage your life and steer your life in successful ways.
And grief doesn't have to be horrendous. Losing someone is horrendous.
Yes.
But the grief doesn't have to be. I actually love writing about death and grief. In fact, in every single book I've written, so I've written some adult books and this is my first children's book, I will touch on grief in it because grief is a currency of love. It's just loving someone differently. And I find that I find that really powerful to write about. I really, in a dark way, really enjoy writing about it.
Yes.
Very cathartic.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you have touched on that in your books.
I think it's weird because in Victorian times, when many more people did die, death really was a part of life, and an experience that nearly everybody had gone through at some stage, and yet, as far as we know, the sort of sex wasn't talked about openly, whereas now people overshare tremendously, and we even have people like very, very famous male pop stars with their own line of sex toys, which I find astonishing. But there we go. But death is something else entirely, and we're not that good at discussing it comfortably, and indeed, because the two people in my life I love most are my partner Trish and my daughter Emma, and luckily they love each other too. But I thought, when I die, and you see immediately everybody freezes up, being morbid, but when I die, they're very different women, and they would have very different ideas about how to do my funeral.
Write it down for them.
And I am in the process of writing it down, so that even if it's not what either of them would want, they can roll their eyes and say, "Oh, Jacqueline, really? Do we have to?" But, it will all be sorted.
Absolutely.
And I do feel that it's something that we should think about. Not in a totally morbid way, but it's I think mums who know they've got a life-threatening illness, and then they've got young children and they write them letters for each birthday, I think that is a lovely thing to do. Yes.
I feel very comfortable around death and talking about death, because to me it just is a thing that I grew up with, and it doesn't feel taboo. I think people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to upset the other person. But my friend, very sadly, lost a baby. She carried the baby to term and the baby died when it was born. And I one day said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to..." I brought up the baby and I said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to remind you." And she said, "You never need to be sorry, because you will never remind me of his name, because I'm always thinking of him."
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a really good point. I'm not bringing back a flood of terrible memories. I love it when people talk about my mum, because I'm like, oh, that's lovely. I'm having that nice memory of her again.
Yes.
So I think we're all just really polite and desperate not to upset other people. And we perhaps don't need to be quite as polite.
Yes, I think, and I mean, I've heard from people who've, say, been widowed, that they actually see nice people cross over the road so that they don't have to say anything. And it's not out of nastiness, it's because they're embarrassed and worried about what to say. Whereas, surely to give that person a hug and say, "I'm thinking of you."
Yes.
But not to say, apparently it's extremely irritating if somebody says, "I know just what you're going through," because you can't know what that person is going through. But that's what I try to do. But possibly the next person I do that to, they back away rapidly. But
my line is always, I wish I had the right words or magic words to make you feel better. I don't, but I'm here.
Yeah, I think that works beautifully. Yeah, I should remember that.
You can have it.
Okay.
You can have it for free.
You gave Jacqueline Wilson some words.
Oh my God. It's the greatest moment of my life.
You've both given so many words of wisdom in the last half an hour. We've actually got some agony aunts for both of you. Would you mind giving your advice to these? Yeah, I don't know who we've got actually.
Hi Jacqueline, I hope you can help with my woe. About a week ago, my nan passed away, and I'm struggling to process my grief. She was a loving, strong and caring woman, as well as a massive part of my life. She was also a massive bookworm who encouraged my love for reading, especially with your books, so you have her to thank for that. I'm hoping you have some advice on how to navigate grief and how to carry on without that person in your life. Thank you.
Oh, I feel so sad for you. I was very fond of my grandma, and it's very difficult if that's the one person you feel accepts you. Grandmas are very good at being very accepting, and obviously, I can't say it's going to get a lot better for quite a while. I feel that you must have to go through feeling very sad, and maybe for me, I write things down in a very private journal or something, as if you're talking to your nan, and I think in some way that might be a little comforting. It's something that we've all got to come to terms with at some stage. And I think Louise, who's experienced losing someone very important to her mum, and we've just been talking about that, I think she will be able to give you truthful but better comforting advice.
So I think that was very comforting. But if I had to add to your already good advice, I would say, when I think about, so I've lost my mum when I was very little, and also both of my grandmothers have passed away now, and they were much like this lady's good women who loved me so dearly. And I think about how much I love my children, and I think if I were to pass away, I would want my children to have a really good, happy life. And this lady's grandma would want her to have a really good, happy life. And I'm not saying don't grieve and don't be upset. Of course you're upset now, but allow yourself that good life, because that's what grandma would want for you. She would want you to enjoy each day. She would want you to socialise with friends and do the things that make you really happy, and not feel guilty about them, and not wallow. So feel your feelings, let them run through you, and then think, right, I am sad about grandma, but she would want me. You've got to live for grandma now, so that when you get to heaven or wherever you believe you go to, and you see grandma, you've actually got something to tell her. I always think with my mum, like, I've got to have the best life ever, because when we have our giant catch up, I need to be able to say I did a lot of cool stuff, not I just sat and was so upset about you the whole time, because you've got one life and you've got to get to those pearly gates or wherever you want to go and have that good chat.
Perfect.
I feel like the guilt is such a really present emotion that is always there with grief, so that is a perfect antidote, I think. We have 2 more.
Dear Jacqueline, I grew up devouring your books, Tracy Beaker, The Suitcase Kid, The Illustrated Mum, and I always felt seen in those messy, complicated, brilliantly real stories. Now, I'm 33, and I feel like I've turned into one of the grown-ups your characters were always side-eyeing. I'm stuck in a job that doesn't inspire me, pretending I have it all together when I actually feel like a kid playing dress up in office clothes. I thought I'd have everything figured out by now: career, love, life direction, but mostly I just want to hide under a duvet, read books about people braver than me. Does adulthood always feel this strange? And how do I find the courage to rewrite my story? With love and a slightly chaotic inner child, Tash.
Do you know, I really identify with this. I remember when I was 33, and funnily enough, in Picture Imperfect, Dolphin herself is 33. I think your early 30s are quite a stressful time. I certainly was going through a stressful time at that stage, and thought that there would be some, if there was any hope, you know, I would be able to cope with so many different situations and not feel anxious about them. And I mean, I'd already learnt to, you know, I was lucky enough to have some success in my writing, and I had conquered any nerves and gone out and given talks and everything. And from the outside, people thought I was living a really special life. But inside, I worried, I agonised about whichever book I was on. You know, I was I always was very close to my daughter, but I worried about this or that about her and didn't bother about any of that. You know, she was absolutely fine. I was in a marriage then, which wasn't terrible, but wasn't really wonderful. I just wasted so much time agonizing. And I did hope there would be a time when everything was working out for me and I felt happy and secure all the time. Well, I'm much happier and much more secure. But there are times when I want to get under my duvet and read books, because I think almost anyone, even the most confident seeming people, have got anxieties inside. And I was once doing an event with somebody very, very famous, and absolutely, she's a kind of legend. And we
all want to know who this is.
I can't. But
will you tell us after?
Yes, I will. And we were both going on stage together for this thing. And I looked at her, and to my astonishment, there were beads of sweat, cold sweat, on her forehead. And I said, "Are you feeling all right?" And she said, "No, but I always feel like this before I do anything." And I was amazed, because she seemed such a totally confident person, had success, and she was quite brave at doing things. And I thought, well, this is not good for you, but whenever you actually get on stage, you're this new persona. And I thought, well, if I get worried about anything, you know, just remember, everybody inside, just some of us are better at hiding it. So I think you will find, as you get older, and particularly if you can navigate through the dreaded menopause, after all those hormones have sort of, all the people-pleasing hormones that made you sometimes take a back seat, you'll find you gain a new confidence then. It's nature's little sort of apology for putting you through all
I can't wait.
I was going to say this sounds great. And you speak out more. And also, you're not so concerned about the way you look, the way you sound, because you, after a while, think, "Oh, to hell with it, you know, I'll just give it a go."
Yeah.
So the future is there. But even now, I can sometimes get fussed about something, and you just learn to suck it up.
I don't know how I can top this. I will just add a tiny little bit of advice. And she talks about she wants to read books about people braver than her. And I would say, if she wants to increase her braveness, you don't have to go from not brave to brave. She could just try every day just to be 1% braver. Just do one very, very, very tiny thing. And if every day she did 1% of bravery, after 100 days, that's 100% braver than she was when she started. So just do one teeny weeny thing. Or if you're feeling really brave, 5% braver that day, 10% braver. And as she goes on, I think she'll find that she's a lot braver than she thinks she is, because we always have depths that we don't know about until we really tap into them. They're not always on the surface. You have to mine into them. And I think Tash will be fine.
I think it was even just brave sending in the voice
Yeah,
notes.
That's
absolutely.
very true.
That was that act of bravery for today.
Yeah.
And
well done, girl.
Well done. We have one more.
Hiya, I'm reaching out for some advice ahead of my wedding in 2026. I'm one of 3 daughters and I have a very strained relationship with my father, but I'm the only one of us 3 that has a relationship with him at all. My parents separated many years ago and we were close. My father and I were close before that, but since then our relationship has become quite toxic, very negative, and we struggle to have any form of very positive relationship. He didn't know if he was going to come to my wedding, and after a lot of persuasion decided that he would come. But I decided quite a long time ago, as soon as I got engaged, that I wouldn't have anyone walk me down the aisle. I wanted to do it myself and walk ahead to my future husband. But my dad's understandably upset that I'm not asking him to walk me down the aisle, and he won't have that opportunity with my other siblings. My question really is, am I being unfair by taking that opportunity away from him, or should I stick to my guns and walk myself down the aisle as I've been planning for a very long time. Thank you.
I think the majority of the advice is going to come from Louise for a particular reason. But I would say you've done your bit for your dad. He hasn't necessarily always done his bit for you. I personally would say to you that do what you want, which is walking yourself down the aisle. However, if he does come, I would give him a big hug beforehand and say it means so much to me that you came to my wedding as a kindness to him, but then stick to what you want to do because it's your wedding. It's not his.
I completely agree with you. It is your wedding and your day and your feelings, and you are not responsible for your parents' feelings. She said at the very end there, should I feel bad for taking this opportunity away from him? Your father took that opportunity away from himself with his actions as your father. So you haven't denied him anything at all. I walked myself down the aisle at my wedding, and I'm really glad I did. I have a very layered relationship with my father, quite complex, and there's parts of him that I like and parts that perhaps just don't sit well with me. And so the key is the father of the bride wants to feel special and important, just wants to feel noted that they are the father of the bride. So for my dad, just some practical tips, if this is helpful to her, is I had a handkerchief made that said father of the bride, and I left that on his seat so that when he got to his seat, he had something there that was his, that was a bit special, different to everybody else. And I also gave him some other like little roles on the day, like I asked him to greet people when they came in so that he could still be the father of the bride, but I could also be an independent bride, an independent woman. And I also explained to him, you know, if you explain something gently, it's always received a lot better without sort of going in for the attack. And I said, we have a really difficult relationship, but the reason I'm doing this is not because I don't love you, but because I love myself. And it's not the olden days, you know, I'm not living with you and you're going to pass me off to this new man. I had already lived with Liam, so I said, I just want to do it myself. And thank you for understanding. Before they've responded, say thank you so much for understanding and being on board, because that's kind of like how I speak to my children a bit, like it's already like pushing him into that, like, thank you for understanding. And then it's sort of got to go, you're welcome. And if he does throw a wobbly about it, that is okay, but he can do that in his space, not this lady's space. He can do that on his own. It's not her responsibility to care for his wobbly.
I feel like lots of people would have that sort of debate because, like, I think I'm not even in a relationship, but I do think about, oh, like, I love my dad and we have a pretty good relationship, but there's a thing where I'm like, I would love to walk myself down the aisle from a more, like, we're not in the Victorian era, no one's giving me away, I give myself away.
Because
it
it was really, if you away.
Yes.
But it's that guilt, you know, some of it, I'm like, well, I love my dad and I would never want him to not feel special, but equally, it is your day.
Yeah.
I mean, quite an antiquated tradition, isn't it?
Many modern women would not want to say, I obey in the wedding vows, because, I mean, that seems very odd indeed now. And if there's any obeying, you know, both of you obey to respect each other, something like that. And I think to start things off, showing I love you, but I love myself, and this is me, and I'm choosing to marry you, is the way to go.
That is all the questions we have. But Louise, do you have any questions for Jacqueline before we wrap up?
I do have an author question.
Okay.
And I don't know if you'll have ever been asked this one before, because I know what it's like when you get asked the same question 1,000 million times and you think, oh God. You know when you dedicate the book to someone at the beginning? You have written over 100 books. Number one, how do you decide who to dedicate the book to? And number two, have you ever dedicated a book to someone and then regretted it later? Because many years ago, I dedicated one of my books to a bunch of friends, and one of the people in that is not my friend anymore. And I look at it and think, It's not for you anymore.
You could cross it.
Yeah, I'm going to go and cross it out on every single copy of the book.
I try, because sometimes you have different friends in different decades of your life, and I've dedicated, I think, several books to my daughter, and I think Trish, my partner, has had a couple.
They're safe bets.
Yeah. And I've dedicated books to different people, professional people in the book trade who've helped me. And sometimes there's been, well, for the children's books, a child that's been particularly sweet, and I sort of take a note of their name and dedicate it to them.
Imagine being that child and finding that out. Oh my God.
Do you know, though, not a single person, and I know many authors, has ever dedicated a book to me. Isn't that ridiculous?
I was going to say, Louise.
No, my book went to print yesterday. I could have changed it.
Next book, Louise.
Oh no, we'll have to write another one now.
There you go.
Wow. Okay, for any author listening, Jacqueline hasn't had a book.
That's very rude, actually, to all the authors in the world. Very rude. Louise, before you go, we have a little something for you.
For your summer holidays.
Maybe.
Just what I've always wanted. Jacqueline Wilson Raised. Well, I will try. I have a abnormally large skull. My dad used to call me Cannonball Head.
More brains inside it.
Oh,
yes. Oh, yes, it looks really cool. It truly does.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this gift. And the real gift is getting to be here and spend this time with you and be on this podcast.
Oh, well, you've been a total star. Thank you
Very
so much.
With my hat on.
Thanks for the question.
I might take it off.
If you want to win the hat as well, you can head to
This
Cosmo.
very hat.
Well,
I don't have
no, that's yours.
Oh, okay.
That's yours. If you want to win one literally the same as that, but just hasn't touched Louise's head, head to Club
Although
Cosmo.
I don't have nits.
Head to Club Cosmo, where we are giving a bunch away. That is it, everyone. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm very cool on that.
Thank you so much for listening to the Jacqueline Wilson Raised Us podcast. This has been made in collaboration with Penguin Books and Cosmopolitan UK. This series was hosted by me, Lydia Venn, produced by Hannah Twigg, and coordinated by Hannah Winter. It was recorded by Megan Beattie, and our designer was Alex Hambis. Special thanks to Becky Shaw and Nina Lewis, as well as Jacqueline Wilson herself and all our guests.